This is a deserted medieval village. It is known to have been occupied from the Saxon period until its abandonment in the 14th century. But what about the Romans? Could they have been using this land too?
In the English countryside there are more than 3,000 deserted villages and they are disappearing at an alarming rate. So we've come out in between the storms hoping we aren't going to get too battered by the weather.
The only way of understanding more about these villagers' lives is through the artefacts that are left behind. So join us as we look for the finds of this lost settlement, an adventure kindly sponsored this week by the online history channel History Hit.
Welcome back, it's Lucy and Ellie from Roman Found.
We are lucky to have an unscheduled and little known about deserted medieval village on our metal detecting permission. Every year the plough destroys a little bit more of what remains here, so it's a race against the clock to find and record the historical artefacts that are lost in the soil before they meet their end.
With this site occupied since Saxon times up until its desertion in the 14th century, we find a wide range of artefacts here, from a silver Saxon skeet to the curious metal fastenings left behind by the medieval peasants. Not to mention a huge scattering of pottery sherds and rubble, all that remains of the structures that were once here.
But what is waiting here for us today?
Immediately the presence of a storm on the horizon makes itself known. We are almost blown off the site of the village in the headwind, but our first find doesn't even come from the medieval village here at all.
It's a musket ball, a piece of lead shot, reminiscent of a turbulent period after the lifespan of this lost village, the English Civil War, where our English landscapes were turned into battlegrounds.
11.
Bit of lead.
Is it?
Yeah, bit of lead.
Anything on it?
No.
Or 17, 18. Where is it, Ellie?
My first bit of can. First bit of can.
Battling the wind, our first actual glimpse into village life comes from the very end of its occupation, the 14th century.
The faintest signal.
Well, we're gonna dig it.
Oh, there's something a little bit green in there.
What's that?
Oh. Looks long.
Yeah.
Long and pointy. What is that? Oh, is it a strap end?
Oh, like a
It looks like a very dainty,
Oh, like a more of
beautiful
a
strap end, yeah.
Oh, I know which type.
Yeah.
Bit more aglet-y, isn't it?
Yes, like an aglet, that's the word. Look at that, how delicate is that? To think that that's survived. Should we get it cleaned up?
Yeah.
Today it is thought that fashion trends change nearly every 20 years. However, in medieval England it would have taken centuries to see the emergence of a new trend.
Which is exactly what this rather unimportant looking metal artefact is evidence of. Believe it or not, this is a new technology, one that is shaping the way that people are dressing. It's a metal lace chape, a tapering conical metal wrapping that was attached onto the ends of laces of leather or textile to prevent their fraying and to allow them to be threaded through eyelets, something that was very important for the new fashion of clothing. This new fashion was a garment known as the cote hardie, which was a close-fitting tunic worn by both sexes in the Middle Ages. The main change in the fashion trend at this time was the movement towards tighter fitting clothes, and they wouldn't have been quite so figure-hugging without the humble lace chape.
Whilst we're digging into all this history, here's a quick word from this video's sponsor.
History Hit is an award-winning podcast network and online history channel where you can stream and download hundreds of hours of original history documentaries, anywhere, anytime and on any device.
Brought to you by expert historians such as Dan Snow, Professor Susanna Lipscomb, Dan Jones and many more.
Uncovering a huge variety of topics right from ancient history, world history, American history to even modern history and present-day current events.
Not only do they already have hundreds of hours of expert-led programs, but they add 2 more every single week.
We've been using History Hit behind the scenes to delve deeper into the history behind our finds and are absolutely loving it. We'll be sharing the videos and podcasts that we've watched later on in this video.
We are delighted to offer you your first 3 months subscription for just £1 a month using our code RomanFound1.
So if you want to go deeper into the history, check out the link in the description or the pinned comment below.
As we move to the next signal, we find ourselves wondering why this village was abandoned.
It was a relatively small settlement consisting of a church and less than 10 households, and we will likely never know for certain the entire reason behind its abandonment. But it isn't alone. Ever since humans first started living in communities, some have periodically failed. There were deserted villages that date from prehistoric times, and others abandoned within living memory. But the deserted medieval village outnumbers them all.
There are probably a large number of economic factors that caused the destruction of the communities that all disappeared in the 14th century.
The plague of the Black Death likely had a large impact, especially on the smaller communities like this one. Plague outbreaks would have drastically cut short the village's population, leaving it weakened at a crucial moment where the rising price of wool was causing a shift in land use from arable to sheep farming, a death sentence to these smaller communities that live by the plough. As with already low populations, the landlords often chose to evict the rest and convert the land to pasture, with the village now deserted.
Some 20s.
This is an artefact that we have never found before, but what is it?
Well, it's made out of lead, a common material that's been used throughout history, largely because of its low melting point and soft nature that makes it incredibly easy to melt, cast and shape. It first appears in Britain's archaeology during the late Bronze Age, and by the late medieval period, which this artefact comes from, it was used for practically everything, from the preparation of food to the creation of tools such as this lead palm guard. Palm guards would have been used by leather workers and in sewing to protect the palm whilst working, which is why these artefacts are often domed on one side to fit the palm and flat on the other to provide a surface to work on. They come from the later end of the Middle Ages and were used throughout Tudor and post-medieval England. In rural communities like this one, it is common to find palm guards that have been cast into shells such as mussel or oyster shells, evidence of the community making use of what they had available at the time. Look at the size of him.
Oh, he's great.
He's huge.
He's hit someone. Grey one, that one. Got no idea.
With the wind starting to pick up and 2 more musket balls in the finds tin, let's see what this next signal holds.
Is it in that? Oh.
Between 30,000 to 100,000 years ago, we first started draping and tying garments to ourselves.
Or is it like a little spectacle?
I think it's a teeny little spectacle buckle. Oh, look.
But the Romans were the first civilization to introduce this particular artefact into fashion that still exists to this day, the buckle. This tiny spectacle buckle comes from the later Middle Ages and Tudor England, where it was the most widely used fastener for personal dress. Chances are if you were a peasant of this time, you would have had a buckle like this one to hold your straps together. It's an excellent indicator of the actual people that lived and worked in this land.
The most important element of village society at the time of our medieval village would have circled around the church and the community itself.
We've already discovered indicators of their clothing and fashion trends, but we're only on the very outskirts of what we know to be the main village cluster. So let's get deeper into the centre of the village, where the main scatter of pottery and rubble is found, a good indicator of the main location.
Bit of a funny one.
Is it a round nail?
I think so.
I think it's a hobnail. I was fully thinking that was a Roman, you know.
And it seems we couldn't escape the storm for too long, digging interrupted as we brace ourselves for a weather bomb.
This strange looking fragment actually comes from the very beginning of the known occupation of the deserted village, the Saxons.
Funny little artifact.
Definitely wouldn't say it's something there. Like
Yeah.
a mount or something, maybe? Almost looks zoomorphic.
It does, doesn't it?
In the early 5th century, the Roman army withdrew from Britain, leaving the country on their own and retreating back to protect the centre of the empire that had been suffering increasingly worse threats from barbarians. Post-Roman Britain saw increasing incursions by the Saxons, Scots, Picts and Angles. Here in central England, the Saxons took power and divided the country into a series of kingdoms. And that is pretty much what we know about this period. Some call it the so-called Dark Ages simply because, unlike the Romans, the early Saxons didn't keep many historical records, meaning that it's often through artefacts like this one that we get to learn about their beliefs, ideology and life. If you look closely, you can make out a protruding eye pellet just below some rather large eyebrows and above a long-looking nose. Classic characteristics of anthropomorphic early Anglo-Saxon art that often incorporated human and animal motifs to express a story from their religion and beliefs. We aren't too sure just what exactly this fragment is from, but our flow has suggested some kind of decorated mount or even a section of a brooch. If you want to see more epic finds like this one, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and support our channel.
Finding an artefact that comes right from the start of the known life in this deserted village has us thinking about what it would have been like.
The Saxons mainly settled into hamlets and villages as opposed to the Romans who had towns and farmsteads. The buildings would have been simple, rectangular huts built of wood and most likely turf-walled with thatched roofs. What would life have been like for these people? And would there still have been some leftover Romans integrating into society, left behind by the retreat?
12:13 sounds really good.
Yeah, what's that? There, it's a coin.
Where?
Just there. Oh, it's a very thin coin, that one.
Is it a hammered then, or?
Is it a hammered or a Roman?
No.
Let's have a look.
We've literally just found a Saxon artefact, so what coin are we going to have here?
Well, it looks like a coin, doesn't
Definitely looking coiny.
it? Is it Roman?
I think it's a Roman.
Yeah, I think it is. I
think
just
it's a
saw it.
Roman.
Right, yeah, do it again. Flick it up. See, single standard, I think.
We've found a coin that predates the known occupation of this lost village. On this coin is the largest fighting force in the ancient world, the Roman army.
Definitely little Roman.
Yeah, there's a
coin
little
there.
bust there.
Single
I
standard.
said I thought it was, didn't I?
Yeah, look at that.
Showing two soldiers standing either side of a standard. It was minted in the 4th century to celebrate the glory of the army. But what was the Roman army like?
The army is often celebrated on Roman coinage as each emperor was very aware that they needed the army on their side to maintain their seat of power.
It was a formidable and highly efficient force, thought to have contained roughly 500,000 soldiers at its peak, and their rigorous training exercises, organisation and logistics ensured that they were the most successful army in the history of the world. But what about the soldiers? Well, let's look at the lives of the soldiers on this very coin, the standard bearers. They were a rank known as a signifer, and their job demanded a lot more than just the carrying of the standards, which were the emblems of their military units. It was a senior role that often ensured promotion to centurion, a step closer to retirement. They were also responsible for the finances of their individual unit and had charge of the burial club fund, which was sort of like a pension that each soldier would pay into to ensure that should they die, they would receive a decent burial. In Britain, only 12 men are known to have held this role.
If this glimpse into the Roman army has left you wanting to know more about the life in the most formidable fighting force in the world, then we can only recommend this excellent episode available on History Hit. Could you survive as a Roman soldier on Hadrian's Wall?
This digs into the story of the soldiers stationed on the wall, looking into what their life would have been like and how rank would have shaped their experience.
Got 11, 12 here.
We got that. Oh god.
Partridge.
What's that there?
Oh, is it a little buckle? Little bit of a buckle?
Bit of a buckle. Oh, look how sweet that is.
Oh, yeah, that's so
It's
sweet.
a lovely one. Oh, let's get him cleaned up. Look at that.
Oh, so sweet.
It's a lovely one. Look at the shape on that.
Yeah.
It's really good. The humble buckle makes up the largest group of finds to come from England. They were the most common metal accessory that came out of a shift in fashion trends towards a more tailored figure, and this was largely because they were available to all sections of class and society. This 13th century buckle fragment displays some quite ornate low decoration around its pin rest, a small feature that would have set it and its owner apart as someone who held a bit more class and wealth than your average peasant.
Nice little 12.
This one had us baffled. Often we find things that we have absolutely no idea what they are, curiosities that go into the finds tin under a question mark.
Well, further research has revealed that this is actually a fragment of one of the very households that would have stood here, a small section of medieval lead window cane, which were the divider bars used between small pieces of glass to create a larger glazing panel.
Another great signal. The last one we had like this brought us a Roman. Could this be another one?
I think we've got a little Roman or something there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, is that a bust?
I think it might be. I think.
Oh, yeah, I can see so.
I've got something on there as well.
So,
Let's get it cleaned up.
yeah. Oh,
lovely. Lovely condition there.
Oh, yeah, a little bust.
And writing around the edge there.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
Yeah, that side's lovely.
side's really good. Oh wow, look at those little soldiers.
Hey.
And the mint.
Oh, yeah.
Another glory of the army type. Now I've just discovered the role of the standard bearer, but what other jobs could you have served in? Well, the Roman army was highly organised and highly efficient, with its own promotional ladder, and many of the high-ranking officers often had their careers linked with civilian administration and governmental work, but there were also a lot of specialist jobs within the army itself. For starters, there was considerable care taken over the soldiers' fitness. All forts contained a hospital, and there were professional medical practitioners assigned to each unit. There were also military engineers who construct all of the buildings for each fort. The engineers required a surveyor who would determine the lines of fortifications and layout. Life in the Roman army went far beyond the work of a simple soldier. There were even specialist trumpeters who used a variety of brass wind instruments to signal instructions in battle and base camps.
So cool.
We've had evidence of all periods of occupation today in this deserted village, but one in particular sticks out, the Romans. What were they doing in a Saxon settlement? Have we found evidence of a Roman use for this land? Farming or a travel route perhaps? But these coins were found deep in the streets of the village, almost as if they had been dropped by the villagers themselves. Surely that would be impossible.
Well, there is one other reason for these coins existing here. When the Romans withdrew from Britain, they didn't just disappear without a trace. You see, when the Saxons arrived, they didn't immediately begin minting coins, preferring a trade and barter-based economy. Therefore, it is known for Roman coins to be found within Saxon settlements, as they were still being used for trade, but their meaning also went beyond just a humble coin. They are often found pierced and transformed into ornaments. The Romans were a powerful society that was looked up to by other societies, so it was natural that their coins became symbolic after their departure, a talisman of something called Romanitas, an aspiration for all.
But what do you think? Let us know in the comments below.
With a final Roman under our belt and dust drawing in, we are heading out. We would like to thank this video sponsor History Hit, and if you're feeling inspired by all of today's finds and want to learn more history, then use our code RomanFound1 to get your first 3-month subscription for just £1 a month. Thanks for watching!